Katherine Gypson for Insight. Today I'm joined by Ron Nessen, former White House press secretary in the Ford administration and former correspondent for NBC News. He's the author of Making the News, Taking the News. Ron, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
You've had the opportunity to view the White House as both a reporter and as White House press secretary. Did you find yourself drawn more to the observer role or the participant role?
I think my personality is to be an observer, and that's what a reporter is. He's a professional observer. But I just had this itch to, when President Ford asked me to be his press secretary, and I had covered the White House during his first month, during the Lyndon Johnson administration, and I always had the sense that, you know, I and the other reporters outside were maybe seeing 10% of what was really going on, or knew 10%, or were being told 10%. I wanted to see what that other 90% was.
Take us back to that moment when you were a White House press secretary, standing there and announcing the end of the Vietnam War, a war that you had covered as a young reporter for 10 years. How did that feel?
I'll never forget that. And as you say, I'd been for NBC a Vietnam War correspondent, and I'd done 5 tours there, got wounded there, you know, saw a lot of friends die there. So then here it came to me to announce that America was getting out of the war, which meant that the communists were going to take over South Vietnam, and what was going to happen to all those people. So I read this statement saying, for America, the war is over. And I've got a tape of that at home. And my voice is about 5 octaves higher than usual, very quavery, because it was so emotional for me and what had happened in my life involving Vietnam.
In your book, you talk in detail about the hostile questions you received from the press about the Vietnam War. Do you think that that relationship between the White House and the press has changed since that time?
I came at a particularly difficult time because Ford came right after Nixon. And of course, you know, it turned out that Nixon and his spokesman, Ron Ziegler, had not told the truth about Watergate and other things. The reporters who were assigned every day to cover the White House never got a single whiff of Watergate. And that episode made them forever, including now, suspicious of anything the White House said. The assumption was the White House is always lying unless they can prove otherwise. But not so much now, but particularly coming right after Watergate, Nixon, and Ziegler.
I'd like to go back to your experiences as a correspondent for NBC News.
Sure.
Can you share with us the experience of getting shot in Vietnam?
Well, you know, I think like all war reporters, I had my little set of rules of things to try to stay alive when covering battles. And so I had some rules. One rule was never go out with a small unit, because even if they get into a battle and you get great film, what does it mean? You know, it's 10 guys. And well, I broke the rule because the 101st Airborne was a unit that was celebrating its first anniversary in Vietnam, and they were the only American unit fighting like guerrillas. So we went out with them, and anyhow, they laid an ambush along a trail, thinking the Viet Cong would come along the trail and they would ambush. Well, nothing happened. So after a couple of hours, we went down to the bottom of this trail where there was a creek to refill our canteens. All the guys shoot into the jungle on the other side in case somebody is hiding there, you know, and it's loud and cacophonous, you know, and I was sort of smiling because it was so loud and, you know, and then all of a sudden I noticed the leaves are flipping back in my direction. Somebody was shooting at us. So I started down and I felt this thump on my chest. And I looked down and there was blood beginning to come out on my shirt. Then I got dizzy and then I fainted. And this colonel I had had breakfast with that morning heard this on the radio, you know. And he brought his helicopter down as low as it would go and beat down, there was this elephant grass like 10 feet tall, beat down the elephant grass low enough that they could throw me up into the helicopter. And I got to a field station, and they started, giving me stuff and brought me out of shock and so forth.
And clearly you survived. Did you go back to Vietnam?
Oh yeah, I went back 4 more times. I went back for the ceasefire in '73 for the last time.
President Ford dealt with a very serious recession while you were press secretary. Do you see parallels with what we're dealing with now? And would you give any advice to Obama's press office on how to deal with it?
Well, the resemblance is really amazing, because the recession that Ford had was really the deepest recession since the 1930s, and now this is the deepest recession since Ford's time. I do think that perhaps the White House has started to do something that I was a little surprised that they didn't do earlier, which is to respond to the number one issue, I think, on the public's mind, which is jobs. Jobs, 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 the 3 top issues. And I think at first they were doing environmental stuff and health care, and I think they finally realized that the issue that's really bothering people and affecting a lot of people is jobs. And so now that's what they have focused on. But it took a while, I think, surprisingly.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really enjoyed the book and speaking with you.
Good, thank you.